Hi folks, this is Kramer from Ipv6 channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the Star Trek lab. This is the video number 22. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been working on our second virtual machine, which we have promoted it to be a domain controller. So we have a primary domain controller and additional domain controller, and as for the second virtual machine, we have configured it to be a DHCP failover partner. After adding the DHCP server role on the second virtual machine, which acts as a domain controller at the DNS server, so we make this virtual machine additional domain controller and a DHCP failover partner. So if our first DHCP on our first domain controller is down, this will be a backup, okay, and it's configured to distribute, or both DHCPs will work simultaneously, or in an option called load balance. So both DHCPs will distribute IP addresses 50%, 50%. So this is the option that we have configured DHCP failover configuration. It's not a standby DHCP, so this DHCP will work with the first DHCP, okay. And then we have added the DFS naming server role and DFS replication on the second virtual machine, and we have also added the file server role on the second virtual machine. So this virtual machine will act as the following. It will act as additional domain controller, DHCP failover, and a second file server and second DFS naming server. And we have configured the replication between both the first file server and the second file server using the DFS replication option. So here we have, as I said before, we have added the DFS replication and the file server and the DFS naming server, and we had configured the DFS replication, okay. Best practice is to have the domain controller on a separate server and the DHCP on a separate server and the file server on a separate server and the DFS naming space on a separate server, okay. But because of my hardware limitation, so I put all of the three roles on one server. What is the best practice? Best practice is to have the domain controller on a server and the additional domain controller on a server, and the file server on a separate server and the second file server on a separate server, and the DHCP on a separate server, and the failover DHCP or the second DHCP on a separate server. If you don't have much servers, you can put the file server and the DHCP on one server, okay. So this is two servers, and then the DFS naming server should be on a separate server, and the additional DFS naming server, which we will configure in this video, also should be on a separate server, okay. So this is the best solution or best practice, okay. This is not a best practice to put all of these roles on one server, and the same applies for the additional roles on the second server, okay. So this is not a best practice, this is the best practice, okay, if you have servers, of course, okay. So we have done this. We copy the file server folders from the first file server to the new file server before configuring DFS replication. So before configuring the replication between the first file server and the second file server, we configure replication between both of them, so the folders and its content on the first file server will be identical to the folders and content on the second file server. Before configuring this replication option or DFS replication, we should do this. We should copy this folder and its structure from the first file server to the second file server, okay. So we have both having the same folders and same structure, and then we begin configure the DFS replication to copy the contents or the changes in each folder to the other folder. So we need to copy the folders before beginning the replication. So we will copy the folder and its content, even it is empty, we will copy them, and we will have an exact copy on the second file server, and then we will configure the DFS replication. We'll tell him to replicate the folders from here to there, okay, and replicate the changes, okay. So this we have done in the previous video. So we have copied the file server folders from the first file server to the new file server before configuring DFS replication. Then we configure DFS replication between the first file server folders and the second file server folders, and then at the end we use the Active Directory Administrative Center to copy the file classification types from the first file server to the second file server. You all know that we have in our lab we have our first file server. It contains some file or some classification file types. We remember that's why we do classification for files, just to make them or make the file server easy to find them. We can remember, or I can show you all this graph. If we remember this that diagram, so let's wait for a moment. So here we have our files on our file server, and then we have made classification to the files according to the location of the file, the department that came or the file came from, and the job title of the user that will access the file. Okay, and then we will use all of these attributes to tag the files. Okay, why we tag the files? So when the file server search, or when we tell him we need, for example, a file from the Columbia Ship Engineering Department, the title that is using the file is Captain, he can find them easily. It's something like tagging the files, so the file server can find the file easily, and we'll use this tagging to help us to control who will access which folder. For example, we can control that, for example, the IT coordinator will only access the file with his title tagged on the file. Okay, so for example, he will tag or he will access this file, the Columbia Ship IT Department Coordinator. So we can use the classification of files to control who can access the files with conjunction or with the help of the DAC rules. Okay, so we have also what we will do in the previous video, we need to copy the classification types because these classification types, just a moment, these classification types, the location and the department and the job title, which are tagged the files, it will not be copied to the second file server. So we need to copy these classification types from the first file server to the second file server. We will do this using the Active Directory Administrative Center. Okay, all of this we have done in the previous video. In this video, what we will do, we need to configure the second DFS naming server. So we will create another DFS naming server, and we will create two DFS naming space, two new DFS naming spaces to point to the first file server folders and the second file server folders. Okay, the same that we have done with the first DFS naming server, we will do it with the second DFS naming server. Don't be in a hurry, it will be very clear when we begin seeing this practically. So let's begin. Here we will go to our second domain controller, which is also the second file server, and then we will access with my domain admin account. Okay, let me show you all a little bit of something here. Now we will begin configuring the second DFS naming space, and if also we can see that let me show you all a little bit also of a graph here. Remember that when we begin configuring this is our domain first domain naming space, which it's called Star Trek.local depths, and this was pointing to the subfolders in all ships, and then we have created another one called Star Trek.local Columbia ship shares, and it is pointing to the Columbia folder with the same subfolders structure. Okay, so this was two domain namespaces pointing to two folders. We will do the same, we will create another two domain namespaces, but they will be different, pointing to the same folders, but it will not be called Star Trek.local depths. The second domain namespace will be called Star Trek.local backup depths. Okay, and it will point to the old ships, and then we'll create another one called Star Trek.local Columbia shares backup, and it will point to this folder and all of its subfolders. Why we are doing this? To have two DFS naming servers. Okay, so we have a backup. For example, if this is down, it will not be able to point to the file server number 1 or file server number 2. So if this is down, no one can access the folders on the file server 1 or 2. So if we have another, it will be a backup, so it can point or guide the users to the first file server folders or the second file server folders. So let's begin. And also we need to remember that doing the new DFS naming spaces, we need to configure the Ntfs permissions and the SMB share permissions. So we need to repeat the same process that we have done in the first DFS naming space and the second DFS naming space. I will show you all this, don't be in a hurry. It will all be clear when we begin configuring. So let's begin. I need to make sure that we are on the same path here, or we are not. Okay, it's only 10 minutes. Okay, let's begin. So remember guys, I need to show you all a little bit of something. You remember that we have copied all of these folders from file server number 1 to file server number 2, so we have exact copy of the folders. So when we create our DFS naming space server here, it will point to the same folders, and it is already replicated between the first file server, so the content is exactly the same. So we will make a DFS naming server and create two DFS domain naming space on it to point to these folders, which is an exact copy of these folders, and they are replicated continuously. Okay, so let's begin here. And also another thing here, let me show you also, sorry please, here the DFS will point to these folders on the second file server. If you need them to point to the first file server and its folders, that's already in your choice. You can do this, but I will point it to the files on the second file server, but I have the option to make it point to the folders on the first file server. Okay, that is also in my option or my choice. Okay, so let's begin. This is the first domain controller. Okay, and then okay. So now I also use KRAO. This is my domain admin account. And then we will begin creating our new DFS domain namespace. So now we'll apply our custom console, and then we will create our DFS and our first domain namespace. So this is the replication. We have our replication between our first file server and second file server. All of them are working perfectly. So now we can see that the replication, all of these are replications between the first file server and the second file server. Now begin creating new namespace. Okay, and we can see also here a little bit of, just a moment here guys, if you can see this, you can see here that the title, location and department, these are the classification types on the first file server. After working with the Active Directory Administrative Center, it copied these classifications from the first file server to the second file server. So we use the Active Directory Administrative Center to copy the classification of files from the first file server to the second file server. Just a moment guys. So we have done this. Okay, we have copied these attributes from the first file server to the second file server. So this is very critical. So we can tag files also on the second file server. So let's begin. Now we'll make a new namespace, and we will point to our first file server, or the second file server. This is our server name, starcom lars02. Okay, and then next. This is the same process that we have done with the first DFS domain namespace. We will tell it it's all ships backup. DFS, and we have created a folder called DFS. So we would custom permissions. It will have everyone. We should remove everyone, but before this we need to put it on a folder called DFS. I have created this folder before, so we will put the shares in the DFS folder, and we will put permissions on this folder to be authenticated users, and we will give them read permission. So the same that we have done in the first domain namespace on our first file server, the same steps applied. So here we'll have authenticated users, and then we tell him apply and OK, and then OK, and then we'll tell him next, and then we will tell him next. So we leave it domain based namespace, next, create, and then under it we will begin creating folders that will point to the all ships folders on the second file server. So now we will tell him again, we will create another or the second domain namespace. It will be for the Colombia ship. So the first one will be for all ships backup DFS, and the other one will be, this is other one for the Colombia shares, and this is the server name of the DFS. So the DFS server will have a name which is our server name. So now name it Colombia, and NX02 backup DFS, and then we will edit the shares, or edit the setting, and then we will make these domain namespace under a folder called DFS2. So we have two folders, DFS and DFS2, and then we will have custom permissions, and then customize, and then we will remove everyone and we'll put authenticated users. And then authenticated users, and then we will begin creating folders under each one of these domain namespaces to point to folders on the second file server for all ships, and to point to folders for the Colombia ship on the second file servers. So now we have created the second domain namespace. So now we will begin creating folders under all ships. Right click and new folder, and then we will name it the same. So we will go to our second file server. This is our second file server, and we have, if you go to the D, we have the folder of DataCube. So here we have the folder of DataCube, which is on the first file server. We have an exact copy on the second file server with all of its content, and there is replication. So we will begin creating pointers in the new domain namespace on our second file server to point to all ships subfolders one by one. So let's begin. So here we have the engineering folder, and we will give every department permissions on these folders. So now we will begin creating it. And then we need to add the target folders. So here it will be on these guys, it is on the second file server. This is the folders on the second file server. So now we have the engineering pointing to it. and then we need to put permissions to allow these folders to be accessed by the engineering group, okay, in our Active Directory. Okay, remember that we need to do something else here before. You need to enable access based enumeration, because this option will help us to make certain folders appear for certain Active Directory groups. For example, the Active Directory group engineering will only see the folder of engineering in all ships, okay, because there is a lot of folders for a lot of departments. Okay, so anyway, we will do this right now, but I didn't do this, and we will configure permissions only the engineering group in the Active Directory to see this folder. Okay, so, and we'll give it a change permission. Okay, so now we will tell him add, and then we'll have the Starcom engineering group, which contains all of the engineering departments in all of the ships and the Starcom Fleet Center. So now we will do this, but we need to give them change. Just a moment. So here we go to the properties, and then we need to enable the access based enumeration. Okay, so enable access based enumeration. Okay, okay, properties. Okay, and then we'll begin enable access based enumeration. Okay, and then we'll begin creating each folder one by one. So the global ID, right click, and then new folder, and then the name of the folder. Okay, and then add, and we will point to the folder. We will do this systematically. Okay, so data cube, and then all chips, then global level ID, and then we'll do this for all of the folders. Okay, and then we'll begin giving permissions on these folders one by one. Properties, and then we'll go to the advanced, and then we will tell him expelled, and then we'll give the permissions. Then we'll add the group of Starcom global ID, okay, or all shares. Okay, we will give them read permission. Okay, the same way we have done on the same domain namespace. So access shared, okay, access, and then okay, and then we have read permissions, apply, and okay, and then we will begin adding new folder. Here you go, and this is the high level ID. Okay, and then browse, and then add, okay, all ships, then high level ID. Okay, so remember guys, what we'll do now, this DFS naming space will be pointing to which? Will be pointing to these folders on the second file server. They are not pointing to the folders on the first file server. Okay, I can do this, but it's pointing for the folders on the second file server, which is replicated continuously between the first file server and the second file server. Okay, so let's begin. Then we can give the permissions for everyone. Expelled permission. Then we will add Starcom underscore high level group. Apply and OK. And then okay, we have done already the permissions, so that's it. We will continue. New folder, and then we go to the IT, then we begin creating the same. Okay, here it will point to the IT folder, and then we will do the same process for every folder. So we have the IT, then we give the IT group, Starcom IT group, full permissions on this folder. Not full permission, read permission, Starcom underscore IT. and then we will add, you can add Starcom global IT group also, but anyway, so now we are putting folder by folder, new folder, and then we'll go to the medic, copy, okay, and then medic, and then apply add, okay, and then add the medic data cube, and then we will add the medic folder, and then we give the medic group permissions on this folder. So expelled permissions configure, and then add, and add starcom underscore medic team, and then apply and OK, apply and OK, and then new folder. This is we for the normal level group. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here we will begin, or we will complete adding the folders in the all ships domain namespace, or all ships backup DFS. So here we will begin all ships, and then we have normal level ID folder, and then OK, and then we will give the starcom normal ID Active Directory group read permission on this folder, add, and then starcom underscore normal level ID okay, and then we'll begin adding different folders. Then we will begin adding another folder, which will be the researchers folder, and then the ship squad team, in configuring one by one. So here we have now two DFS naming servers with different DFS domain namespace. Okay, so researchers, and then we will add the Active Directory researchers group to this folder, or to give permissions for Active Directory researchers group to this folder, starcom underscore researchers. Okay, and then go there and add the group, and then OK, and then apply and OK. Then we have the ship squad team, and then we will begin adding different Columbia ships folders to the second domain namespace. These folders are, again I repeat, it's on the second file server folders, which are replicated with the first file server folders. Okay, and then we can add the ship squad team. And by the way, after that you can make a group policy to map these domain namespaces, okay, if the first DFS naming server is down. Okay, so you have all of the backup you need. Okay, so now we will have the ship squad team, and then we will add the starcom ship squad team to this group, or to this folder, and we give it read permissions, apply and OK, apply and OK. Now we'll begin configuring the Columbia, okay, DFS naming space. See, I don't know what I'm doing here. I think here I am going to the first file server. I will copy. Okay, yes, here I am putting the different Ntfs permissions on these folders. Okay, on the data cube folders. Okay, so just a moment. So we will copy this folder that contains the scripts from my first file server to my second file server, because I need, after adding, or after I have added all of these, remember this graph, after I added all of these or adding the DFS, okay, I need to add the permissions on the folders. Okay, I still didn't have permissions, Ntfs permissions on the folders. Okay, so we need to do this. Okay, so here let's begin. So now we'll begin adding the different Ntfs permissions to the folders in the data cube, the all ships folders and the Columbia ship folders. Okay, the Ntfs permissions. Okay, so we have done the SMB share permissions. So now I'm just here personalizing. Here I need to add the control panel. Okay, just a moment guys. Okay, so let's continue guys. Now I need to add the control panel on my desktop, so I can add or I can access the network connection setting for all of my 8 network cards. Remember that's when we have promoted this server to be a domain controller, it is also a domain controller and a DNS, so we need to put the DNS alternative setting in all of the 8 network cards on the first domain controller and the second domain controller. So we need to go to the 8 network connection setting for all of the 8 network cards on this server and fill the alternative DNS field with the IP of the server, and do this on exactly on this first domain controller. I will show you all this, so wait for a second. And then we need to work with the Ntfs permissions script. Okay, so we need now to put permissions, okay, on the folders. Okay, so we need to add permissions on the folders of all ships. So remember, if I can show you all this, the graph. So what I'll do now, I need to add, this is the folder of all ships and these are the subfolders, so we need to add every group to its folder. So this is the medic Starcom group, it will have modify permissions, Ntfs permissions on their folder. This is the Starcom engineering folder, it will have modify permissions on the engineering folder, so we need to have Ntfs permissions. We will use a script to do this. Okay, and we'll do this also for the Columbia ship. Okay, so here let's go. Okay, this is the Excel sheet, or this is the CSV file. You tell him the folder and the group that you need to give it control over this folder, and these are the different permissions. So Starcom IT will have full control over the high level folder. Starcom high level group will have modify permissions on the high level folder. We have done this before. Okay, so now I am editing this text file or CSV file, and then I will use the script to apply it. Okay, here I tell him to replace this clone NX02 with Starcom. So I need different groups to have different permissions on different folders. Okay, we have done this before guys, so please refer to my video concerning the Ntfs permissions or the DFS configuration, the first video. So now we will begin working with the Ntfs permissions. Edit. We'll have Ntfs permissions on the data cube on the second file server. Okay, Now we'll tell him we need to have permissions on the DDataCube all chips folder. Okay, so we'll put permissions on the all chips folder. So we remove this. We'll have it on all chips folder. Okay, so this is the permissions we need to add. So we repeat the same process that we have done on the first file server and the first DFS naming space. So we'll go to all chips and then we will add the Ntfs permissions. Okay, here you go. We will tell him DataCube all chips or all chips only. Okay, and then we will save and then we'll apply the script. And now we can check and see the permissions ourselves. So we will go to one of the folders in all chips. For example, this is all chips engineering folder on the second file server. We can see that when you go to the security tab for this folder, I think it is paused maybe. Yes, it is paused. Okay. Here we can see in the security tab that we have Starcom IT full control and engineering have modify. So we have the same permissions as it was in the script and the same as on the first file server. So now we will begin adding the folders for the Columbia ship, and then we'll begin adding them one by one. Here I have the names of the folders, so I don't need to put them, to copy them one by one. So here this is the engineering folder, and then we'll add, then we will point to the Columbia ship DataCube Columbia ship engineering folder, and we'll do this for all of the folders. Okay, we will add them all at once, and then we'll begin adding each permission to each folder after that. Okay, then we'll add the high level ID and then apply. Okay, and then point to the high level folder, and then OK, and then OK. And then we will add one by one the global level. Then we will add it, new folder, and then add the folder, or add the name of the folder, and then point to the folder DataCube, and then Columbia ship, and then global level. OK, OK. Then we will continue doing this until we finish all of the folders, and then we will give permissions one by one. Okay, and then add it, normal level ID, and then add it, and then Columbia, and then we will add the IT folder. So we have the normal level ID, so we'll add the normal level ID folder. Okay, and then OK. And then we will add the IT, maybe the IT or the researchers. Anyway, we will add them one by one. Next, and then researchers, and then add, and then browse, and then DataCube, and then we will add the researchers. OK, OK. And then we will add the medic. Okay, we add the medic folder. Okay, and then we will add it, and then add, and then browse, and then we'll add DataCube, and then أيوة. Okay, ثانية واحدة. So let's continue, guys. Now we'll begin adding the folders, the medic, and then we have the IT, new folder, and the IT, and then add the target folder, DataCube, Columbia, IT. Okay, and then we have the ship squad team. We have the last one, the ship squad team. Copy, and then we will add it, new folder, and then add browse, and then DataCube, and then Columbia ship, and then the ship squad team. Okay, and then we'll begin giving different permissions one by one. The engineering folder, we will have the Columbia engineering group to have read permission on it. So Columbia, Columbia engineering group. Here is the Columbia engineering group. Okay, and then it will have read permission. So every group will have its permissions, or its permission on its specific folder. So here it is, the global level folder, and we will give the Columbia global level group permission on this folder. So here we go, we will add it. Okay, the Columbia shared access group. Okay, we will wait a minute. Shared access L. Okay, and then okay, and then okay. Remember, we can map them after that. If our DFS first DFS name server is down, we can map these two using our group policy that we have configured before. And now we'll begin adding different groups. Expel permission, configure, and then add. And then we will add the Columbia high level group. Okay. Columbia high level users. Okay, and then okay, and then we will add, this is read permission, and then we'll add the IT, and we continue doing this one by one. The IT properties. Okay, and then expelled, and then configure, and then add the Columbia IT group. The Columbia IT group. Okay, apply and okay, and then apply and okay. Then we have to the medic team properties, and then advance, and then expelled permissions, configure, and then we will add the medic team, Columbia medic team. Here is the medic team. Okay, and then we have the normal level group and the researchers and the ship squad team. Apply and okay. The normal level ID properties, then advance, and then expelled, and then configure, and then add, and then it will be the Columbia normal level group. So every group will have its permissions on its specific folder or its respective folder. So here we will have normal level group. Okay, and then we'll have the researchers. This one of them will have read permissions on his folder properties. Then the researchers group, configure, and then add the researchers group or Columbia researchers group. so we are repeating the same process that we have done in the first DFS naming server and DFS domain naming space. We have done this before. Okay, apply and OK, and then we have the ship squad team. Okay, properties. Okay, and then we need to tell him expelt and then configure and then add, and then this is the Columbia ship. Okay, and then we have it. Okay, so we will add the ship squad team and then OK, and then OK, and apply and OK. So this is, just a moment guys, so this is the configuration of the second DFS naming server and domain namespaces, these two domain namespaces. So just wait for a moment, let me see if we have passed. Okay, we can stop here. Okay, because in the second part we'll begin configuring the DNS, okay, or adding a DNS for the network connections for the 8 network cards on this second server and the file and the first file server. Anyway, we can continue this, just a moment. So here we can continue doing this, we have still some time. So here we're opening the control panel. Okay, and then we need to change the network connection setting for all of the 8 network cards. So here we will change them one by one, and we need to inform the DHCP that we have a second DNS, okay, in place. Okay, so here we'll go to the properties for every one of the network cards. Okay, and then change, okay, this 127.0.0.1 to be this IP address. By the way, 127.0.0.1 is the same as 192.168.1.3, the same effect. Okay, but this is for simplicity. Okay, so I will change all of them one by one for the IP version 4 and IP version 6. Okay, so we'll do this, we will change it. Okay, 0.168.2.3, so this is the DNS. Okay, and we do this on this file server or this domain controller and the first domain controller. We will do this one by one. Okay, so we'll do this Ethernet and then properties and then TCP IP properties, and then we will put 192.168.3.3. so now we are doing this alternative DNS for all of them, and this number 4. Okay, properties, and then we will add the same TCP IP, and then we will change 192.168 k.4.3. okay, and then we will do all of this. Okay, and still we need to do this for the IP version 6 as well. So now we will get to the properties for every network card, properties, and then we will add the DNS 192.168.5.3. so this is the IP of the domain controller, and it's also at the same time the DNS. So we'll go to the 6 network card, and then we will do it properties, and then it's 192.168 k.6.3. okay, and do this on the first domain controller as well. So we'll do this also. We'll go to the 7th card. Remember to do this also for the IP version 6. Okay, we need to do this for the IP version 6. okay, 192.168.7.3. okay, and then okay, close, and then we'll go to the 8th network card, and then we'll do this. Okay, properties. Okay, and the same 192.168.8.2. remember, this is a domain controller and the DNS. Okay, so we'll do this. Okay, close, and then we will do this for the first domain controller as well. So we need to go to the first domain controller and do this also. So, but before going to the first domain controller, we need to change the IP version 6 DNS also. So we'll do this now. So we'll go to every one of them and change also the DNS of the IP version 6. Okay, so here we'll go. We need also to change this. By the way, $1, it is the same as 11.3, so this is the same. Okay, it's exactly like 127.0.0.1. okay, so we'll do this for every IP version 6. okay, and we need to inform the DHCP that we have secondary DNSs, okay, on all of our network cards. So we will add also the DHCP in the DHCP information to be distributed the secondary DNS. okay, we have 8 secondary DNSs. We need to add them in the DHCP also scope or the DHCP information. I will show you all this one, but wait for a moment. So this is also for the IP version 6, and we'll do this one by one. IP version 6, and then properties, and then we will add it. We'll add this IP address. okay, with this one by one, and then okay, close, and then number 4, properties, and then we'll go to IP version 6, and then we will add it. We'll do the same on the domain controller number 1. okay, we'll do this also. okay, so we'll do this, okay, and then close. Then we have the network card number 4. okay, we'll do this is also properties, and then this is already added, so we need to do this for the 5th network card. okay, and then properties, and then here you go, this is the IP version 6, and then we will do this, Control C, Control V. okay, and then we will do it number 3. okay, close. okay, and then close, and then we will continue network card number 6, and then we will do this also on the first domain controller. So we will go this on both domain controllers. So now we will add it, Control C, Control V. okay, and then this is it, number 3. okay, close, close. Then we do this for the 7th network card. okay, and then we will do it here, TCP IP, and then we will add it, Control C, Control V. okay, we will do this. okay, and we have the 8th network card. okay, or the 7th network card maybe. So this is it. We will continue. We have done this before. Then we go to the 8th network card. okay, and we will go this again. okay, and add it. okay, and this is number 3. okay, and close, and then we will need to go to the first domain controller and add the alternative DNS in its setting. So we need to go to the first domain controller and do the same. okay, so here we will go and add it. okay, view, and then okay, then we'll do the same. So we'll make it KRAO, and you need to configure both DHCPs to distribute the alternative DNS. So be careful, you need to go to the DHCP configuration for both DHCPs to distribute the secondary DNS. So remember this. So here, just a moment, here we will go also and change the network setting for every one of the network cards to add the alternative DNS. okay, it's the Ethernet, and then we'll begin the same process that we have done in the first in the second domain controller. So now we will add it. okay, here is the IP version 4, and then here we need to add the secondary DNS. okay, 168.1.3. okay, so this is the secondary DNS. We need to do it, and to do it for both IP version 6 and IP version 4. okay, so we'll do this one by one. we'll do this. Okay, number 3. Okay, we need to do this to all of the cards, so we'll do this one by one. Okay, properties, and then we will add the TCP IP version 4. Okay, and this 192.168.2.3, this is the IP of the second domain controller, which is acting as the secondary DNS as well. Okay, and we add also the secondary DNS of the IP version 6. So we'll do this now. Okay, 3, and then okay, and then close. We'll do this for the all of the network cards, properties, and then TCP IP, and then you will add 192.168.3.3. remember, this is the first DNS. Okay, so we will add it. Okay, and then the IP version 6. So we have all of this. Okay, and close, and then we'll do this for the fourth network card, and we will go and continue. So it is IP version 4. Okay, and then it's 192.168.4.3. okay, and then IP version 6. Okay, we will do it for here, and we'll add this. Okay, number 3, and then close, and then we will add this also, and we'll do this for number 5. On 192.168.5.3. okay, and then okay, and close. Okay, IP version 6. Okay, and then Control C, Control V. Okay, and then close, and then close, and then we have the 6th network card. We'll do the same. Okay, 128.6.3, and then okay, and then close, and then we have also the IP version 6. We'll continue doing this. Okay, and close, and then we will have the number 8 or number 7. I think we have done already number 7. No, it's 192.168.7.3. Okay, and then we will do this for the IP version 6. Okay, properties, and then add it, and then Control V, and then 3, and then we have the last one, and then we need after that to change the configuration of the DHCP. Okay, on both DHCPs. Okay, so we will do this also. 168. Okay, 0.8.3, and then okay, then close, and also the IP version 6. Okay, we will do it here, and 3, and close. Okay, and close, and then we go to the IP or the DHCP configuration, and we'll begin configuring it. So I think maybe I have something missing here. Just a moment. Okay, anyway, so guys, I will stop here at this one. Okay, but before stopping, I think we need to begin configuring the DHCP. So let's go there. Not the replication. So here what we will do, now we have gone to our first scope. Remember that we have here 192.168.1.2, and we have the new DNS, so we need to add it here, and the Columbia also we need to add the secondary DNS, so we need to add them. Okay, so we'll go to the DNS and then add 192.168.1.3. okay, because this scope has another DNS. Okay, a secondary DNS, and this will be done for the scope of Colombia as well, okay, and this will be done also for IP version 6, so this should be done, okay, and this should be done on the first DHCP and the second DHCP, because I don't think it will be replicated, but anyway, just make sure, okay, and then we will go to the Colombia ship, and then we will add also the scope options, okay. We'll add the second DNS, which will be 192.168.2.3, okay, 0.2.3, okay, and then add, and then we need to add in the IP version 6 the same for every scope or for every IP range, okay. Okay, tell him to add it, okay, apply and okay, and then we need to do this for the IP version 6, okay, the scope options also as well. So you need to add in the scope options the DNS to be the other one, okay, but it will not be configured from here, it will be configured from the server options. So we can go further here for the server options, and as for the DNS we will add this DNS, okay. Okay, so I will stop here at this one. In the upcoming video we'll begin configuring the top secret DAC rule. So until then, hope this video is informative for you all, and would like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much. Just make sure that we have stopped at minute 46. Thank you so much.